Hey everyone, my name is Jose, and the new Xiaomi 12S Ultra phone has me very hyped for the future of smartphone photography. So the Xiaomi 12S Ultra is going to be revealed in a few days, and the whole focus about that event on the Xiaomi 12S Ultra phone is about its photo taking capability and quality based off of their Leica campaign. I bet these phones will be really cool. I love the supposed leaked design of the 12S Ultra. I really like how that looks. And I bet these phones will be really equipped with its photography level based off of this Ice Universe tweet saying that the photography will be awesome. But I'm also really stunned about the whole Xiaomi Leica partnership. Like, ever since Huawei has fallen due to sanctions and politics, Xiaomi has been scooping up the market in China and all across the world in terms of smartphone market share. But Xiaomi also scooped up Leica, which has been partnered with Huawei ever since the P9 came out in 2016. Now, there are a bunch of reasons why Xiaomi scooped up the Leica partnership, which is mostly for business purposes, but I want to go straight into this video's thesis, which is, are phone camera partnerships actually meaningful? To quickly introduce you to this topic, in recent years, smartphone manufacturers have been partnering up with top-notch camera companies to make their smartphone cameras take better photos. So that example of Huawei and Leica collaborating together to make the P9 take better photos, that's one of the most notable cases of a smartphone manufacturer working alongside an expert camera company. But we also have other camera partnerships such as Oppo and OnePlus working with Hasselblad for their newer phones, and also just recently Xiaomi and Leica once again. But something that has always, and I truly mean always has puzzled me is that how can we prove that Leica did anything at all to the P9 cameras? All we have is a general statement saying that Huawei and Leica co-engineered the camera optics, image processing, and similar sorts, but it's hard to pinpoint specific details into how much contribution Leica had with any of these aspects. And this will be especially hard for me since I don't have these phones for myself to explore, like the camera experience and stuff like that. So what I have done instead is just formulate ideas based off of reviewers and what they've said about those phones. And from this point forward, a lot of what I will say is just my speculation and evaluation. So take everything I say with consideration because this thesis is actually hard to prove. And truthfully, I kind of can't prove anything I will say. So the predecessor to the Huawei P9 was the P8, and from what I can tell, the P9 had some improvements over the P8, but that was for a few reasons. First, let's look at the camera hardware. So the P8 had a single rear camera, and the P9 had dual cameras with one RGB sensor and the other a monochrome sensor. From the sample photos I have seen online, it looks like the P9 took better photos with mostly corrections to white balance, but I also see some added sharpness and detail which may be the P9's monochrome sensor. But besides that, it looks like Leica also updated the P9's camera app with new icons and design tweaks according to Huawei via DP review. But that's an interesting take because besides Leica tuning the cameras for the P9, they also helped redesign the camera app to better suit that compact mobile photography experience. It might not seem like much, but I'm sort of surprised that this phone camera partnership did more than just camera sensor tuning in one way or another. And one last notable outcome from the partnership on the P9 is the introduction of the Leica color filters, so like Leica Vivid and Leica Smooth, which has been featured all the way through the Huawei P50 phones, so I guess that's something. But after taking a look of the Leica and Huawei partnership coming from the P8 and onto the P9, I still feel skeptical about it for a few reasons. Like I showed you the camera samples, and yes, the P9 does take better photos, but there's 3 direct reasons why that happened that doesn't relate to Leica. First is the monochrome sensor, which would help the phone take better photos than the P8 because the monochrome sensor would help capture additional detail. Second is that the P9's camera sensors were slightly larger than the P8, so that's always an improvement for the most part. And the third reason is that phone cameras improve with each new model because Huawei and other smartphone manufacturers for their new phone models would have developed better computational photography with each annual cycle. I mean, yeah, Leica supposedly tuned the cameras and redesigned the camera app and added those Leica color filters, but could Huawei have the same camera taking quality without Leica? Because again, the sensors got bigger, there was a monochrome sensor added, and computational photography improves with every new phone model. So you have 3 general reasons why the P9 took better photos than the P8, but Leica doesn't necessarily have to be in the picture for those 3 general improvements to exist. And I don't know if Leica was the one that said, hey, let's add a monochrome sensor to the phone, but if they did that, then that would confirm how Leica approached improving the phone cameras. But other than that, it's really hard to prove that Leica seriously did anything at all other than redesigning the camera app and adding those Leica color filters to explain where the P9's camera improvements come from, other than the 3 general reasons I mentioned earlier. And then we have the P10, P20, P30, P40, P50, which all can show you how those phones take better pictures than its predecessors, but where is Leica in the picture? Like, we know the P30 takes better photos than the P20, and that the P40 takes better photos than the P30, but those 3 general reasons for improved smartphone photography still exist for those phones. As an example, let's compare the 2016 P9 to the most recent 2021 P50 phones. The P50 phones are going to have larger camera sensors than the P9, not to mention more camera sensors because the P50 has an ultra-wide sensor, a telephoto sensor, and even a monochrome sensor, even still. And also, the P50 is going to have better camera hardware because the P50 has an RYYB sensor, which is supposed to be better than a traditional RGGB sensor. But also, kind of most important is that the P50 is going to have like 5 years of improved computational photography over the P9. But where is Leica? Leica's right there on the back of the phones next to the cameras, but again, it's really hard to prove that Leica had any say or work put into these phones if Leica or Huawei themselves aren't publicly saying what Leica is doing to these phones. In a press release from 2016, Huawei said they would build an R&D lab in Leica's headquarters to improve computational imaging, but this doesn't really say how many of the lab employees are from Huawei and how many are from Leica and who is doing what and so on. In Huawei's presentation for new phones, you can see the Leica logo in the phone reveal, And you can see key terms like quad Leica camera setup and similar terms. But does this mean anything? Never in these presentations does Huawei say, hey, this is what Leica did to improve our cameras. And even when they do say that, it goes back to like the Leica color filters and similar things, but never specifically, hey, this is what Leica specifically did on this, and that's how our cameras got improved. And this goes back to the 2016 press release because we don't know if the Huawei Leica lab is responsible for stuff like the 5x optical zoom and the RYYB sensors and stuff like that. All it is the Leica quad penta camera setup and the Leica color filters, but it doesn't go much further than that. And I find it really interesting that the Huawei P50 phones, which Leica did collaborate on, was not mentioned in the Huawei P50 presentation reveal. I mean, if you look at the P9, P10, P40, and all of those presentations, they always touted about the Leica collaboration and the Leica setup, but that wasn't mentioned in the P50 presentation. And did the P50 cameras improve over the P40 cameras? I mean, for the most part, they did, other than the absence of a 10x optical zoom from the P50 phones. But even so, the P50 phones did take better photos than the P40 phones. And now that Huawei doesn't have the Leica licensing anymore, are the P60 phones gonna be better than the P50 phones? I mean, they should be better for the three general reasons I keep explaining before. So as far as the Huawei Leica Saga, it's safe to assume that Leica did improve the Huawei phone cameras given the improvements we saw with the P9 in 2016, but it's still really hard to tell what exactly Leica is doing. And then we have other camera partnerships like Hasselblad and OnePlus, which I can't get too much into detail because I don't have a Hasselblad OnePlus phone alongside its predecessor before the partnership happened. But what I can say is that some reviewers thought that the camera improvements seen from the OnePlus 8 over to the OnePlus 9 were somewhat minute, but the same reasons still apply on how a smartphone camera can improve on its photo taking capability without a camera partnership involved. But in the press release announcing OnePlus's partnership with Hasselblad, we can see statements like Hasselblad's iconic design and outstanding image quality in the hands of more people and share our passion for incredible photography, which doesn't explain much. And then another expected statement is the partnership will continuously develop over the next 3 years, starting with software improvements, including color tuning and sensor calibration, and extending to more dimensions in the future. That's pretty given. But then we get more specific statements like natural color calibration with Hasselblad aims to bring more perceptually accurate and natural looking colors to photos taken with OnePlus flagship cameras. So we get generic statements like sensor calibration and whatever, but then something more specific and actually meaningful is that OnePlus wants their phones to take natural looking colors and that calibration will be provided by Hasselblad. I mean, you don't need a partnership to achieve natural looking colors on a phone, but if it means that a camera partnership will help you achieve that goal faster, then the partnership with Hasselblad actually does make sense. But probably a very meaningful camera partnership would be Vivo and Zeiss. I say this is meaningful because the Vivo phones have a natural color mode, and from what I can tell, their collaboration with Zeiss, it actually looks pretty good. And then the Vivo phones have some Zeiss aperture bokeh effects, which is supposed to mimic the bokeh created by real Zeiss camera lenses. But I'm pretty sure that Vivo single-handedly created these like bokeh effects because they're all artificial. It's all computational photography. But then they wanted Zeiss to license their names for those bokeh effects based off Zeiss camera lenses. So like Zeiss Biotar and Zeiss Planar. But again, I can't prove this statement. And another thing coming from the Zeiss Vivo partnership is that the Vivo phones have a really premium camera lens coating. I'm not too sure about the material, but it's supposed to be better than what you see for most camera lenses on phones. And from what I see from reviews online and stuff, this premium Zeiss lens coating for the Vivo phones, it looks pretty good based off of the outputs from the Vivo cameras. But other than that, I'm not too sure about the Zeiss and Vivo partnership. So basically, out of all the camera partnerships I have mentioned so far, if I was to choose one that would be actually meaningful, it would have to be Vivo and Zeiss for the reasons I mentioned earlier about the Zeiss premium camera lens coating and then the natural color modes and then the aperture effects. So yeah, it looks like that one's probably actually meaningful. Now I want to go back to the Xiaomi 12S Ultra phone because I think that phone will be impressive for many reasons, but at the same time, once again, I am here to argue that Xiaomi and Leica partnership is probably meaningless. And it's meaningless for the same reasons as I mentioned before. If they don't tell us what this partnership means, what Leica is doing, then it's hard to prove that this partnership is like successful at all. The presentation is upcoming in a few days. I think it's July 4th in China. So a few days after this video is probably going to be posted. And I'm pretty sure in the presentation, we're going to see improved bokeh effects and dynamic range that it makes it look like the 12S Ultra was, the photo quality was taken on an SLR camera, but we'll have to wait and see from reviews and studies to see if this is true consistently or if it's just a one-time thing. But at the same time, we'll just have to wait and see anyways. And again, this is all just speculation from this Ice Universe tweet because this tweet from Ice Universe is just having me on the edge of my seat. I really hope this phone is the way I want it to be pictured, which is just a really revolutionary phone. So we really do have to wait to see if this is true. So if we see improved bokeh effects and dynamic range and whatever else Ice Universe is saying, did Xiaomi make this happen? Did they make the improved dynamic range and bokeh effects happen? Or was it due to the Leica partnership? Well, again, I'm here to argue that Xiaomi probably is responsible for this. So on the speculation that the bokeh cutouts for the Xiaomi 12S Ultra will be really good, how did that happen? How did this phone have really good bokeh cutouts? Well, I have two reasons. The first reason is the time of flight sensor that's going to help figure out what's the foreground, what's the background. So that's one reason on how you can have improved bokeh cutouts on a phone. But what about computational photography, which is probably also a big reason on how the Xiaomi 12S Ultra probably is going to have really good bokeh cutouts. And did you notice something? I said Xiaomi's computational photography. I didn't say Leica's computational photography. Does Leica even have any computational photography? In some sense, which is kind of weird, I guess Leica has computational photography for their cameras, but that's really like auto white balance and auto exposure. which is standard for all SLR cameras. So saying it's computational photography is not really that accurate. It's just auto settings, and I wouldn't really say auto settings on a camera counts as computational photography. But then again, why would Leica have like real computational photography? I don't really see a reason why Leica would have any computational photography at all. Leica makes cameras, really premium cameras that have really big sensors and stuff like that. So why would Leica need computational photography for their cameras, which already have enough dynamic range, as opposed to smartphones, which have really tiny sensors and are in desperate need of camera sensor to help them compensate for the lost dynamic range because they have such tiny camera sensors? It makes absolutely no sense in some way why Leica would have computational photography like HDR multi-stacking, because again, the Leica cameras already have plenty of dynamic range that they don't really need like HDR multi-stacking. And even if they did have that, it would have to be somewhat different than traditional HDR multi-stacking seen on a phone. So it's just kind of weird. Again, I cannot prove this. I cannot prove that Leica does or does not have computational photography software, but in some way, it's really weird to think that Leica would have computational photography that's really advanced and really good, and that Leica camera software alone is what made the Huawei phones take really good photos, and now the Xiaomi phones are going to take really good photos due to some Leica camera software. For reference, let's go back to the OnePlus and Hasselblad press release, and in the press release, it says this: with OnePlus's top-of-the-line hardware and computational photography, and Hasselblad's rich aesthetic knowledge in traditional photography, I am confident that the OnePlus 9 series will be a major leap forward in our ability to deliver a premium flagship camera. Right there, did you see it? It said, with OnePlus's computational photography and with Hasselblad's expertise, not with Hasselblad's computational photography, because Hasselblad probably doesn't have any computational photography. OnePlus does, because they're the phone makers who actually need it for their phones to compensate for the small sensor sizes. You should already know computational photography is at the forefront of making phone camera sensors really good, because they're super tiny, need to compensate for a lot of different things. And I even talked about this multiple times on my channel. So here's one, actually it's over here. Here's one where I talked about it recently with how our smartphone camera is supposed to improve in 2024. So go please check that out. So all what Leica and Hasselblad really did is just tune the smartphone camera sensors and teach the phone manufacturers about auto white balance and auto exposure and whatever else. And I guess if desired, add extra components to the partnership. So like how Vivo and Zeiss have that premium Zeiss camera lens coating, and then the bokeh aperture effects and stuff like that. But other than that, it's really hard to prove that any of this exists without the companies themselves saying that they did it. I mean, also, if you think about it, camera companies have expertise with bigger camera sensors than phones. So like a 4/3 sensor and larger and whatever else, right? But these smartphone sensors are significantly smaller than what they're probably used to. So they're going to try with all their might, their expertise, to help compensate for these small sensors. But that help probably doesn't come from advanced camera software like HDR multi-stacking, because they probably never worked with this sort of software and experience before, because a smartphone camera's problem doesn't really exist with the with like their traditional camera SLRs. So it's just kind of weird. But this whole camera partnership thing can actually go much further than that. So as another example or mention, the Xiaomi and Poco phones have partnered with Harman Kardon to tune their speakers for their smartphones, but even like tuning audio in some way has less layers and is more linear than tuning for photography because, you know, visual versus audio. But even so, what could an audio partnership do? Like, what does that look like? I mean, in a simple way, Harman Kardon could be like, hey, your speakers are like this, and we need it to be like this. So please tune your speakers to match this like frequency graph or whatever, because that process is a lot more linear than tuning like a camera sensor, as an example. I mean, it's really similar to camera sensors because we know camera sensors on phones are really small, and a speaker on a phone is traditionally really small. So again, we have another similar problem that, you know, speakers on a phone are not as good as larger speakers, like whether that's desktop speakers or portable speaker or whatever, like how camera sensors are on a phone are really not that good compared to real SLR sensors and stuff like that. Imagine if I had my own phone and I wanted to tune the camera sensors on my own phone so that I like how the camera quality looks like. But a problem I had is that I had no computational photography. So it all relies on my tuning. Well, my tuning can only do so much with the absence of computational photography on my own phone. I mean, you can even somewhat try this out for yourself. So we have the Open Camera app, which is an open source camera app for Android. It's really popular. It's really standard. And then what I want you to do is just take a photo with the Open Camera app and take the same photo with your native camera app and just compare them. You'll see that they're probably similar, but you'll probably like how your native camera app took that photo. And the reason that the native camera app took a better photo than the open camera app is that your native camera app has computational photography. You can tune the open camera app however you like, but computational photography was probably the reason you preferred your native camera app. So yeah. And I can also somewhat prove this statement as well. So have you ever wondered how a new phone comes out, but it has the same sensor size and even probably same sensor components as the previous phone, but the new phone, even with the same freaking sensor, takes better photos than the previous phone? So how did that happen? That was all computational photography. That's improved on the new phone, and that's why it's beating the old phone. At least for the most part, that's what's supposed to happen. And this is probably really much true, because if you look at the Pixel phones, I think it's the Pixel 2 to the Pixel 5. I might be wrong, but I think it's the Pixel 2 to the Pixel 5. They had the same sensor for the longest time. And with every new Pixel phone, from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, even though they had the same sensor, you saw dramatic improvements with each new model, even though they had the same sensor. That was all computational photography. So yeah. So when people see a Leica branded phone, so the new Leica 12S Ultra phones, if someone sees that phone, they're gonna, because they see that Leica logo on the back of the phone, they're gonna associate the premium camera experience and premium build and design and photo quality you see with a real Leica camera and associate that with that 12S Ultra phone just because it has that Leica logo on the back. And a lot of it, it's marketing, it's branding. So all the times Huawei featured the Leica logo and Leica terms in their presentations, and now Hasselblad and OnePlus, all the times you see Leica or Hasselblad in those respective phone presentations, that's pretty much just marketing, that's branding. In a poll conducted by Android Authority in April 2022, 52% of respondents say that they think camera partnerships are just useless. They don't have any value to them. And then we have some featured comments on the poll from users like Joe Black, who say that camera partnerships, when you see that Leica logo on the back of a Huawei phone and now a Xiaomi phone, you're just being persuaded by PR that that phone is going to take really good photos because you're associating Leica and all their expertise with now this Xiaomi phone. So pretty much a lot of it is just PR. And then you have some partnerships like Nokia and Zeiss. And I think those Nokia phones had some sort of premium lens coating or obviously tuning from Zeiss. But if you think about it, those Nokia phones took really underwhelming photos, even though it had that Zeiss partnership. And a lot of it had to do is that Zeiss probably did not have any computational photography to license out to Nokia. I mean, that's probably all that camera partnerships are. It's licensing not only your expertise, but your logo to these products. And I guess this licensing is just part of a greater scheme, making you think that these phones and their cameras are actually like legit. And you know what's really strange? Xiaomi and Leica announced their partnership in May 24 of this year, so 2022. And I'm pretty sure that they didn't partner exactly on May 24. So let's just say the start of May, just to give it time. So Leica and Xiaomi partnered since the start of May, and July 4th is just around the corner where they're going to reveal their first Leica-Xiaomi collaborative phone. So you're telling me practically within like 2 months, Xiaomi and Leica already worked extensively to make the Xiaomi 12S Ultra phones take really stunning photos. All it took was the partnership and 2 months. That doesn't seem right. So if the Xiaomi 12S Ultra phone does take really stunning photos, Leica's not responsible for that. Xiaomi is, but they won't tell you that because Leica is a more valued figure in the photography space. So now, to close my thoughts, you already know what's up. How am I supposed to attribute credit to Leica or any other company making a phone better if they're not clear or transparent about what they're doing to the phone cameras? We know what Vivo and Zeiss have done together, and now OnePlus and Hasselblad have done together, which is a shared interest of a natural color mode, but this information is not always so clear. And it's especially not clear with Leica and Huawei, because all I could really figure out is that with the P9, it had a redesigned camera app. There was the Leica color filters, which carried on to the P50 and such, and some vague design camera choices and whatever, but it's still not really that clear. Again, don't forget, there are reasons on how a smartphone can take better phones with each new annual cycle compared to its predecessor, and it relates to better camera sensors, bigger camera sensors, I guess even more camera sensors, so like time of flight for bokeh effects and whatever else, but especially, do not forget, especially improved computational photography. And for the record, I want to make this very clear. I am not saying that Leica and Huawei was a bad match, or even Hasselblad and OnePlus is a bad match, or anything. I am just saying that I really wish we as the consumers could know what a Leica-Huawei branded phone means. What does it mean to have a camera partnership? I just want to figure that out. Also, I just want to feature a clip from the Friday checkout because I really like what Martin says about this whole Xiaomi and Leica partnership. So here you go.
Okay, my first story of the week is going to be Xiaomi announcing their new brand partnership with Leica, who used to be brand partners with Huawei. But the announcement video that the company split out in China, which I've linked to down in the description, is really hilariously low effort in my opinion. Just people sitting in suits, visibly bored, visibly reading vague corporate statements in bland rooms over video calls and whatever, which really doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of love between the two brands here. And of course, Xiaomi's track record with cameras is also kind of mixed so far. So unless they do something surprisingly great, I feel like this could end up devaluing the Leica brand quite a bit. Going to Huawei first and then selling out to Xiaomi right away really feels like you're just willing to slap your logo on anybody's products who's willing to pay, which is not a great sign, but we'll see how this ends up being.
You should go check out the full clip. It's about 2 minutes, but I just showed you pieces of it. So you should really go check out that clip because I really like how he says it. So yeah, it's kind of just a PR stunt from Xiaomi with their collaboration with Leica. And it really does look like Leica was forced to sit down there in the conference table and just be like bored. Obviously, it's kind of like a satire approach to viewing this. But in a way, is Leica bored of camera partnerships with phones? I don't know. But yeah, this does seem kind of funny if you look how Martin says it. And yeah, it's just really baffling how we really can't prove how camera partnerships, except Vivo and Zeiss, because I really like that partnership, how these partnerships are actually meaningful and if they're successful, because I really wish we had more details about them. But you know what? After all of this, I'm still very excited, and believe me, I'm excited and hyped for the reveal of the Xiaomi 12S Ultra phones because I just really want that phone to beat other phones in the photography space. And the way they're gonna do that is because of Xiaomi's computational photography. If you enjoyed this video, then please give me a like. And if you didn't like what you see, well, you know what? You just lucked out because I have some camera, oh, that exposure's bad. Some camera partnership stickers. I have Leica, Hasselblad, and Zeiss, well, that exposure's bad. But you know what? You don't get a sticker because you disliked this video. And I'm gonna put this Zeiss sticker on my Poco X3 Pro, because why not? Oh look, I have a Zeiss logo. Does that mean it has Zeiss coding? Does that mean it has Zeiss planar lens? I don't know. But if you did like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, honestly, this is no different than putting a Porsche logo on your car grill, but your car is like a Honda Odyssey. So you know what? I'm gonna keep this on here. And yeah, jokes aside, I'm still really excited for the Xiaomi 12S Ultra. It's been on my radar for a long time, ever since rumors, what was it, since November or earlier, I don't know when, that Xiaomi and Leica would be partnering because Huawei and Leica's partnership ended. So yeah, this phone has been on my radar since forever, since I really want this phone to succeed. I really hope it's good. And yeah, part of the reason why is that Leica partnership. So that's kind of ironic, isn't it? And just to put this idea out there, we all know that product partnerships happen all the time. So like the Travis Scott McDonald's meal, that's a partnership between fast food and a celebrity. But at least with that Travis Scott meal, we knew that those selected items came from Travis's choices. But you know, with a Leica, Xiaomi, a Leica-Huawei phone. We don't know what the choices are from those partnerships. So again, I'm just calling for more transparency about these partnerships and the decisions made between both companies. So yeah, that's about it. I really want to thank you for watching this video because it was really interesting. I found this video to be really interesting. So again, thank you so much for watching, and maybe go on the internet and search some news about the Xiaomi 12S Ultra phone because I really want that phone to be good. I really do. So again, thank you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.